Welcome back to Reps and Real Talk, the show where we break down strength and conditioning without the controversy and buzzwords that you typically see online. Today, myself and co-host Justin Rey are digging into one of the most foundational and most argued about movement patterns in the game, that is the squat. We're breaking down the most overhyped and underrated squat variations, from free weights to machines. We're calling out all the squats that are getting a little bit too much love and shining a light on the ones that are not getting enough at all. And at the end of the episode, we may even crown a new GOAT of the squat pattern exercises. So whether you're a coach, athlete, or just someone trying to figure out what's actually worth programming, stick around until the end of the episode to learn more about the best and worst squats that you can put in your program. Yo boss, we're back for another episode.
Yo boss.
How are we doing? You always have the better whistle than me. I can't do it. Yo boss.
Things are good. Just finished up a nice bro session, upper body only. Getting the new Amazon quarter zip, fit nice. How you doing, man? I see you got the sore neck stuff on.
Yeah, I mean, today we're talking about squats, right? So I thought I'd put the sore necks on. It's only right. But I'm doing good. Weight is just coming off me right now. I was a little sick a little bit ago and like with food poisoning, and since then I've not been able to put it back on. But getting ripped up, so that's kind of nice.
Perfect time of the year for it, man.
Yeah, exactly. Summer shred. It might be complete. Who knows?
You might have hit fast forward on that, right? The sickness kind of helped you.
Yeah, I mean, the fastest way to lose 5 pounds is get food poisoning, apparently. But yeah, nice little cleared me out. Been training hard, so that's always good. And so today's episode, we're getting into squats, specifically squats in terms of their usefulness exercises within basketball, but we can also apply it to some broader perspective as well. So let's kick us off. We all know I got the Sore Necks t-shirt on.
Yeah.
The king of squats, all right? The number one that everyone talks about, probably the most controversial as well, is the back squat.
Back squat.
How do we feel about back squat?
You want me to kick this off or you want to kick it off?
You kick it off.
Featuring my buddy Tony right here.
Yeah, there we go.
My rating, I think some people are going to be disappointed. In my end, it's not the GOAT for this population specifically, and I would give it like a 6 out of 10. I've seen in the past what I've saw and what I've tried to prescribe, and is the back squat. The guys are just getting 90 degrees and that's it, right? Like that's like I'm not. You have to get ass to the grass. I'm not that one of those guys, but it doesn't look well on people that are very tall, long-limbed. Their low back is extremely way arched, right? Like to the point where it's just like too much trunk flexion. It doesn't look good, right? And I said this in the past with another episode. Go ahead.
Have you ever seen the LeBron squat video? Just
Yeah,
in terms of like,
it doesn't look like it feels good on him. Like he doesn't look like it's almost like we're giving somebody, like I think Corey Schlesinger has used this in the past, this terminology. It's like we're giving them like a disease. It doesn't really look like it's helping that guy, right? And a lot of times the coach's eye, if it doesn't look good, it's probably not the right thing to do, right? So it's just my personal opinion. I think there's other means and methods to use for the back squat, but we'll get there. I want to hear your opinion on the beautiful back squat.
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify real quick, when you use the 6 out of 10 scale, 10 being effective, 0 being not great.
Yeah.
Is that where we're at?
Well, I think, yeah, right. I think the use of the exercise load we don't get as much load on that specific exercise in this sport. So yeah, I don't think it's very useful for me and what I've coached in the past. So I think it is a great exercise. If people can do it very proficiently and it looks really done pretty well. But right now, like I haven't used the back squat that often, and guys that have said, oh, I want a back squat, and I let them I just kind of want to see. It doesn't look right. Everybody seems to be doing this like overarched, my chest is sticking out, the bar's pretty high up on the traps, low back's arched, and they're getting halfway, and we're trying to overload that without that specific intention to detail. Like that's just how low they're getting, and we're not just, the movement doesn't look proficient. Just my personal opinion.
Yeah. Form over function type thing.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, I mean, kind of similar experience to you. I honestly think that the back squat's more overrated than anything. And it's to our own fault because it's the most researched lift in terms of compound exercises. There's shit ton out there on it that shows that it is beneficial done right. And realistically, it's designed for shorter guys that have those shorter legs that can get arse to grass, have shit ton of it, hip internal rotation, things like that, where like you can keep a more upright torso, counterbalance against the bar. And like normally basketball guys, right, we're dealing with from the ground up, the feet are normally a little bit jacked up, ankles are not the greatest. So we're already limited in terms of active dorsiflexion a lot of times, especially if they've had a shit ton of ankle sprains. Squat as a back squat pattern, we need quite a lot of that, and they just don't have it. So then a lot of them have the old anterior pelvic tilt, like you kind of were talking about, right? So it's just kind of like, am I crushing their spine and causing compression for no reason? And I'm not saying that the back squat's dangerous for that, because again, if it's loaded super heavily, then possibly, right? If you don't use the correct form and technique. But I'm not going to be the guy who's like, oh, like back squat's bad for the back or anything like that. I just think that it's misapplied to a lot of people. And sure, the ankle dorsiflexion limitation, put them on a heel wedge, probably going to squat deeper and better, and it's going to look a little bit better. But then there's still that level of
Sometimes, right? Like I tried
yeah,
that
not
too. Yeah,
always.
yeah.
Because if it's not the ankle that's the limiting factor, then it's now going up the chain. So is it knee flexion? A lot of guys have patellar tendonitis. They have patellofemoral joint pain, so they don't like deep compression, which comes with the back squat as well. And then the next thing up the chain is then hip rotation. Like if they don't have access to much hip internal rotation, they're not going to be able to squat deep. And a lot of basketball players, from my own testing and evaluations and seeing other PTs and ATs do theirs, like not many people have 20 degrees of hip internal rotation, so they're not going to be able to squat ass to grass.
Yeah.
So then, again, to your point, parallel might be fine for some adaptations, but I typically don't think of patterns anymore. Like I don't think of it as like I have to get this pattern. I think of it as adaptation. So like if I'm going for eccentric loading of the quads, what exercise is best suited for that person to get me that type of load? So the back squat can be a fair one to get that load, but if they don't do it well, and especially if they don't get into those deeper ranges, because we'll get into this, I think, and I've sort of mentioned it in a couple of episodes previously, like the lengthened partial position, I think, or the lengthened position, should I say, not even the partial position, but the kind of bottom half of a squat, I think is going to be the more stimulating anyway for at least muscle growth. And then I think strength comes off of that. But generally speaking, a lot of our guys don't get that deep. So we're losing a very potent stimulus by placing them in a method that is not great, sort of thing. And so I'm going to kind of throw one back to you because we mentioned it a couple of episodes ago in terms of a piece of equipment in the weight room, the Smith machine, in terms of now the Smith machine back squat. Is that an improvement of an exercise? So rather than using a barbell, we actually could use the Smith machine to be more effective for some of these guys?
I think so, 110%. Right? And people are saying, why? It's the same movement. You're just creating more stability though, right? So I
Exactly.
think creating stability is going to create for, if we're looking for that eccentric adaptations is what we're looking for, then stability is the main thing, right? So creating that, obviously you're going to be able to get in those deep, super deep ranges too, right? Everything is probably done much better, even if you're doing a isometric hold in those deep positions, because you have the stability to do it, right? You can manipulate the squat pattern to be more of a 90-degree angle, right? Less the knee going over the toes, right? So we can kind of stack, quote unquote, like correctly, which in certain ways can also help that athlete and get more of a quad focus. But I'd say that's an underrated exercise and piece of equipment is the back squat on the Smith machine. To the point where in my career, I think the Smith machine should be in most weight rooms at this point.
Yeah, I'd
If
agree
you're
with
working
that
in basketball,
for sure.
you know,
And
and
like any Olympic
yeah, yeah.
weight room, if you can fit it in there. We had one at Penn, but it was like upstairs. It was two upsets, should I say, two flights.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you never used it because you're not going all the way up there to program Smith machine. So I honestly wish we had one down in our bottom weight room.
Yeah. Everything, you could do everything on it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I think the big part of like that is like what you mentioned of being able to manipulate the person around the machine. Whereas with the barbell, unless then we're using wedges and maybe like bands for like assistance or something like that, or spotter arms where we do a bottom ups approach. Like there's it's really hard to manipulate body position. Whereas in the Smith, you can walk those feet super far forward and it almost becomes like a hack squat in a sense, especially the Smith machines that have like the angled bar as well,
Hmm.
where you can
The
change the bar
track,
orientation.
right? The track's
Yeah,
going
like the
on an angle.
track.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant, the track. That way, like it's almost like a hybrid hack squat. So that's why like I think it's pretty cool to use. And yeah, I would agree. An underrated squat type pattern, and probably underrated because of the accessibility, which maybe some people would argue that it's overrated because you don't have access to the machine. You know what I mean?
Right.
But we probably should.
What
Again,
about, so in this term, we're talking about back squat in the Smith machine. Now, what about the hack squat, where you're kind of laying down almost, right, on an angle? You're on that really nice angle, but you don't have to worry about standing up, right? Like you're
mhm.
you're kind of just at rest. You're relaxed, and it's all lower body, right? Like yeah, if you want to argue that it's full body, whatever. What are your thoughts on that? Whether plate loaded or even a cable stack? What do you
Yeah, I
think
mean,
about that?
underutilized bit of equipment. It personally in my programming, like I wish I used it a lot more. We only have one machine, so it gets tough if you try to prescribe it as a full group setting, but maybe a smaller individual workouts and stuff like that. I think that it's arguably for me one of my top three types of squats. One personally, but also if I was using it with athletes, because again, the directed load and the positioning of it. And the other thing that kind of I like about it is I don't think we need to lock out in that one. I actually want them to keep a little bit of tension and length on the quads.
Sure.
So like it
Slightly
becomes
soft
brutal.
knee, almost like something you would see in like an RDL pattern, right? For the listeners that are kind of not like a soft knee,
Yeah.
we say.
Soft knee, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So again, don't fully lock out because when you lock out, you get rest.
Hmm.
There's no the resistance profile of that squat is completely there's not really too much going on. You're just kind of stuck in the machine. So I don't personally ever try and go to lockout on that one unless like I am getting fatigued and then
Sure.
it inevitably happens. But with my athletes, yeah, I would definitely utilize that bit of equipment. Again, the challenge is the square footage, the amount of square footage that it takes up in a weight room. What about you? Do you have a hack squat at LaSalle or no?
I don't. I have pendulum squat,
Pendulum squat.
right? So
Oh,
the one
okay.
that kind of like it's shaped like how the hell do you even say it? Like almost like a,
It looks like a medieval catapult type thing.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you're gonna
scorpion
shoot.
tail, right? Like one of
Yeah.
those where you're getting smashed into, but you're still at a really good advantageous angle, like as if you had a heel wedge, right?
Does your one have the adjustable plate where you can move the foot plate?
No, it's a
No.
stationary
Oh,
plate. It's just
okay.
your foot position is going to determine like the more the quad or the glute. The lower you get, the glute, and then the
Yeah, yeah.
further out you get is the quad. That's kind of where it kind of shows you. It's kind of a crazy squat feeling in that it's almost like you're on a ride, like an amusement park ride, where you're kind of locked in on the shoulders. But that you got to lock out. I mean, it's technically you could tell anybody
Yeah.
that you could still keep it bent, but whatever.
I mean, it's tough. It's real friggin' tough not to lock out on that machine.
Oh, I know.
If, like,
Yeah,
that
you're
that
grinding
might
somebody.
be
Yeah.
that might be like medieval torture device. Like when I said it's a medieval catapult, maybe it's a medieval torture device if you like don't let somebody lock out
Hmm.
on that one.
And to be honest with you, I haven't used it all that much. And I think this year, with the newer guys coming in, we have kind of like, we're not using our full 8 weeks, like everybody's reporting it at the same time. So I'm going to see guys earlier, like a few guys earlier, and then everybody's going to, the rest of the team will report a couple weeks later. So it's going to give me some time to kind of put guys through workouts, kind of wrap with them, work out with them. And we're going to see what
Mhm.
we're going to mess around with some like squat patterns, like to see what's our go-to here with this group. And I think this year I kind of want to like, I'm erasing that whiteboard approach and kind of starting fresh and just kind of upgrading my own coaching style. But I also want to see how guys look in that, right? Like, so
Mhm.
because you can get in a hell of a deep position with those, like you're basically forced into
Your
that. And
butthole
then
like touching the floor.
holy shit, dude. Like, yeah, like that'll put you ass to grass for sure. But I think it could be super useful too. just depends on how that athlete takes it. Like guys that are sensitive on the knee, we got to see. We got to see. But I do think for range of motion and getting to that pattern, I think it's super useful. Again, exposure to these things that you're going to want to use throughout the year and future. So I think that's a fair.
That's awesome that you have
Yeah.
a pendulum squat
I
because
have
you
two.
don't really. Oh, you have two. Even really see those very often, especially not in Olympic sport weight rooms. You guys might be one of the first people I've seen that have that bit of equipment, and I've been in quite a
And
few
like
different.
if I post about it, I'm not getting any views on it because nobody knows what the hell it is or does.
Right. They just and honestly, again, I'll default back to the bodybuilding stuff. Like this machine is getting absolutely rinsed in the bodybuilding community because like people are getting monster quads from it because of the positions and load that you get. And the one thing that I'll say to add to all the benefits that you just talked about is I never ever feel my lower back at all. And I don't have any like knee pain. And like when I back squat, two areas where I feel like shit is my left patella and my right lower back. Like no matter what. Now that's my own bias and my own personal experience. I'll lift slightly less loads because a pendulum squat's actually really, really hard. But like for the equivalent of what my one repetition max is in the pendulum squat, I don't feel anything other than like my quads are on fire. And then when my quads are on fire, my glutes kick in a little bit to try and help me out. And then I freaking bottom out in the bottom position. I've been in the gym so many times where like I've failed on that machine that like I kind of feel embarrassed.
Yeah, I mean, but there's something about it, right? Like you feel like accomplished after that, like because you're really pushing your limits, and it's
For
fairly
sure.
safe, like it's fairly safe.
I think it's one of the safest. At the end of the day, you can. I don't know about your one, but we can adjust the like where the spotter arm ends. Like you typically ended in that deep squat position, but like it saves you and you just jump out of it, kind of thing, kind of almost like a leg press
Yeah,
in a sense.
it only goes so far, but mine goes all the way down, dude. Like so, like if a guy kind of bottoms out and it's like failure, I'm gonna have to help him push that back up, and we're gonna have to lock
Yeah,
it in
you can
place.
spot it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you can spot it. The other thing that I've seen people do is actually balance like a plate on the stopper arm, so they just stack some plates
yeah,
so it doesn't go up as high,
yeah, for
or a
sure.
box or whatever. Which I said that the hack squat was in probably my top three. This one is also in my top three, potentially for me number one.
Yeah.
I think personally now utilizing that bit of equipment more and more in my own programming, like I would definitely invest in one of those if I ever run a weight room again.
Yeah, and I think it's you don't know what you have until you actually start using it. So that's what I'm going to start doing. I'm going to start using it in my own program.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah,
I'll send you my program. You can have mine.
absolutely.
Pendulum squat. I guess I'll then give another one that I think I just kind of mentioned it as a bit of a like, for me at least, it's underrated but probably used quite a lot. I think in basketball circles is the leg press, but specifically the 45-degree shuttle leg
So
press, not the
when you're lying on your back and you're pushing the weights up,
yeah
right?
yeah
Your legs are on your chest and you're kind of pushing away from you.
yeah, not your like fitness
Yeah,
center
yeah, half.
seated
Yeah, yeah,
leg
yeah.
where like the basketball player can't even fit inside that. And there are like other variations of leg presses. The gym actually that I'm training at right now has four different variations, which I've never seen one where you're completely laid on your back and you're pushing vertically, which is kind of crazy cool.
We have that too at Fusion.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
I've never.
think I feel comfortable doing that with a lot of people around me as well. Like it's a
I
little ridiculous.
I didn't feel it in my legs at all. I just felt it kind of well, sorry. Let me rephrase that. I didn't feel it in the quads at all. I only felt it in the glutes and I just felt like I didn't have any stability anywhere else. That was the first machine that I've been in where like I didn't feel stable because I was like completely on my back. And it's not going to crush you because you set the spotter arms and things, but like yeah, it didn't hit my quads quite the way that a normal leg press hits my quads
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah, it's unique. That's a definitely a unique one. I would say that's more of a female Instagram-ish exercise choice, respectfully to what it provides, right?
Yeah, it's a booty builder.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But with the shuttle leg press, the reason why I've used that quite a lot because I had two in my weight room that I was last at. So like Guys that were definitely like restricted because they've had like disc herniations and things, like those sort of people where that disc herniation, they were still psychologically don't want to load under a bar. Putting them in the shuttle leg press made so much more sense.
Hmm.
We had like one kid, I think he did like 800 pounds or something like that, like leg press. Like he's obviously doing it for reps. He's strong, but like that sort of like mentality is just like every week you could probably add reps and load to that machine fairly substantially and keep pushing sort of thing. And even if you did fail, it's so safe that you're failing in that bottom position, but it's not going to crush your spine. It's not going to do anything else that's like bad. So again, it's one of those like safer option, get targeted load to the quads, both eccentrically and concentrically in this case.
And would you say, generally speaking, right, the machines, the exercises that we've used, that we just talked about, like machine wise, do we underutilize them and we just focus on load all the time instead of like, could we turn certain exercises into a plyo based, like a loaded plyo
Mm-hmm.
for power concentrically, right? Instead of always worrying about the eccentric portion?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's going to depend on how the machine, like the hack squat we had at Penn, you wouldn't be able to do a jump on it if you were a 7 footer because you just
You're going to
smack
crack
the
the, yeah,
top.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay.
So it depends on like the machine and stuff like that. The pendulum squat would be a perfect one where you
Yeah.
can do that.
Yeah.
Personally, I haven't programmed it, so I don't know like the adaptations and the potential that you can get out of it. I'd have to like guess, right? But you can 100% do it. I think the overarching thing is the reason why machines are probably so underutilized is group setting training. Whereas if I'm like in an NBA weight room, I'd probably kit out an NBA weight room to look a little bit more like your fusion gym or something like that. Probably not with the square footage, but like have more of these machines because a lot of that is individual one-on-one training.
Right.
So you can easily program that.
And in
When you've
base,
got
yeah.
no, I was just gonna say when you've got like 16 guys coming in at the same time, you've got to prioritize who gets what. So like if there's guys who can get barbell load, I don't think the differences are that great that I have to make sure everybody touches the machine,
Mhm.
if you know what I mean. Just the same that I don't think everybody has to touch the barbell either.
Right.
So yeah, what are your thoughts with that?
So I was going to piggyback off of you with like, just say we're in a director's role in the NBA, right? Just let's put it out there. How many Smith machines would be? I get it's all like square footage and all. Like, what would be ideal? Like, what would be okay to have in like just high major basketball weight room in college, or and it's your own, or share with the women, or an NBA setting? Like, if you were like, here, I'm going to make my own weight room. Square footage isn't really an issue. What equipment would you have as far as like for squat patterns?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, if I'm sticking with Smith, like one, I'm seeing if there's a company like Zornex or whoever out there that has a Rack Smith hybrid thing going on, which should have Googled that by now.
I think there is. I just don't know the name.
Yeah, like if that exists, I want to see it because I want to see how it fits. If not, like I would say you want a minimum of one Smith, and you can probably get creative of like where it's positioned in like kind of those bigger like jungle gym type racks, if you know what I mean, where it could become a multi-purpose platform Smith
Sure.
area. Again, I would say like minimum of one, probably ideal two. Anything more than that, it has to probably be integrated into the rack system. So if you had like three back-to-back racks or whatever, NBA weight rooms are generally a little smaller, so that's why I'm kind of like capping it there. Because that's where like pendulum squat, I want at least one of those in my weight room. I want a decent leg press and probably
A large
if
hack
I've
squat.
not got the yeah, if I've not got the Smiths, I definitely want a hack squat. If I've got the Smiths, I think I could adjust the Smith machine if I could get some variability in the track to match what you could get from a hack squat kind
Hmm.
of thing.
Sure.
And then from there, which will move us into our like next discussion of a squat pattern, then I'm more so gravitating towards safety bar for my squat patterns versus the conventional bar. And so it was a few episodes ago now where we talked about that post that we both had with the front rack safety bar squat, right?
Yeah.
And for me, that is of my top three. That right now is my number one, and some variations off that as well. Just because going back to that back squat conversation, a lot of the bigs with the long trunks and massive femurs, they're doing that hip based lean trunk flexion strategy, right, for a squat. Counterbalancing with that load, throwing it in the front, allowing the center of mass to shift back, they're getting in deeper positions without ankle wedges, without assistance, without stability of Smith machines. Like, so for me, it's like automatically just by changing the position of the load, they get more into a deeper squat pattern. We know from research that loaded anteriorly, like front squat, targets the quads a little bit better than the back squat because of that trunk position and things. So it's better than a front squat. We've talked about that before, I think. So we can
Comfort
maybe
wise,
like
right?
comfort wise, yeah. But even like I'm going to double down and say plus load, because if you try and max out your front squat, I bet you can do at least 10 pounds more with the safety bar rack front squat.
Yeah, I
So even
agree.
from a maximal force generation perspective, probably better than the front squat, because you're limited by the stability challenge of having your shoulders flexed, your wrists in extension, things like that. So yeah, comfort, all that other stuff.
So
But everybody who's been a big that I've used that exercise with has squatted deeper than they can conventional barbell. So
100%. So for the listeners like that can't really picture it or have never done or used the safety bar, right? We're talking about the safety bar, right? The pads that go around your neck, almost like that H, like letter looking pattern that goes over your shoulders. You're flipping that around, hugging it almost like a turtleneck, right? It's going to go the
mhm,
opposite way. The bar is going to be facing the opposite way. And now we're almost like in that cradle, elbows up. I'm hugging this with my,
yeah.
right?
You
And
can go like a cross grip, you
cross.
can go conventional, you can do whichever. You could even probably, I've not tried it, but that zombie squat position, if you were trying to teach squat mechanics and squat pattern, you could probably be in a pretty stable zombie squat and
Mhm.
load that heavy as well.
For sure.
So it's one of those where, yeah, the loading profile of that squat, it's the best, in my eyes at least. I'm going to go out on a whim and say that it's the best barbell variation squat that you can do.
I would,
So
I
I'm
would,
going to call it underrated,
yeah,
but I think it's the best. It could be
I
good.
would agree too because comfort, right? And we encourage whoever's listening, just go try it. If you have access to it, go try it and just do it. See how you feel. But also working in basketball, we're not like these guys with their wrist and the range of motion that they don't typically want to be there because it's super uncomfortable and it's less for us to have to now teach, right? We're kind of getting right to the point and picture. Sorry.
You're good. Which, to that point, again, I'm starting to gravitate away from methods that could potentially, in some way, hinder that person's performance. And when we think about basketball athletes, the importance of their shooting arm, right? And then it's like, I'm crushing that wrist with a barbell front squat. And like, it could be fatiguing some of the forearm, things like that. And then they're expected to go out and shoot at practice. How many times does a kid turn around and be like, oh, like, lift crush me? And I'm like, bro, we did lower body. And then it's like, oh fuck, actually we did front squat. You know what I mean? And I didn't piece it together. It's like saying that that's an excuse and that can generally happen. But if you have got somebody who lacks that mobility there, they could get sore, they could get fatigued. Like, why would I use a pattern that does that? Essentially, again, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that effective methods. I've got one that's even better. Which to that point, I'll kind of piggyback on my own self there with this is where it leads me to what I think is a really overrated exercise, and that's the Zercher squat. And I think that's going to be my controversial take of this episode, and a lot of people are going to disagree with me.
Yeah.
But again, that safety bar front rack squat is the happy medium of a nice, cushioned, comfortable Zercher squat. And people are going to say, well, yeah, you can go get the cushion and put it in your crease of your elbows and your forearms and stuff. But my big thing with that is like that compression there. What if we accidentally compress a nerve or a vessel, an artery? We've got some of our main arteries that run down our left arm, right? What happens if that gets crushed because we try and load it too much, right? Again, what's a basketball's moneymaker? It's a shot, generally speaking.
So if you're impairing that in any way, now we're messing skill, which is the most important thing that they have on the court.
It's just not worth the reward of that exercise is not worth the potential risk, especially if it is just that raw barbell across there. If they're padded, I'll give it a pass. But the thought process is right, like similar thing, anterior load, take out any of that shoulder flexion within that Zercher. They're gonna generally squat more load. And then that's where like it kind of becomes like this like little weird thing for me because we're gonna by default as S&C coaches, we're gonna load it up more and more and more and more. And then it becomes less about kind of like what the exercise is and more about if they can hold it in that forearm bicep isometric hold position. And it's not really directing that load towards the quads. So why would I tax other areas unless I felt like that position was important? Which football linemen being there and doing that, you know what I mean? Like they probably need a little bit of that. So Zercher squat could be really useful for them in that field. So I'm not gonna again badmouth the Zercher as being the worst exercise in the world. But if I'm working basketball, I don't think I need that exercise. If you programmed that, have you used it? What do you think? Where's your rating of that one?
I programmed it again, not in basketball. I haven't programmed it for. It's been more the private sector setting and personal training setting where I'm working with one on one. But then again, like, once load gets involved, like as we keep going higher and higher, the more uncomfortable and less safe the exercise becomes. And like when we're talking about that for basketball players, the trunk flexion that's going to happen with these guys, it's going to be way too much. And then here comes the back, right? And then here we're getting blamed. Ah, my back is flaring up. And now the next few days, that person is like
Yeah,
practice and
that's
stuff like
a
that.
that's the other thing that I kind of missed is how do you bail that squat? You automatically lumbar flex. Like it's the only way you can bail out of it. Like you're doing a crunch almost. And we're worried about spinal flexion and too much load because of back squat and compression, right? Like the shearing load just from bailing that heavy searcher is going to be just as detrimental in my eyes. So again, we can't even load it heavy because if they do fucking fail, you best hope you got spotter arms and they can sit back because otherwise they're just gonna, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, that for me, if I'm being honest, probably the most overrated squat of all squats. I'll give back squat a pass. It has a slight overration for me. Like Zercher, anybody who like lives and dies by Zercher, I'm like, do you even know how to program other squats? You know
Right.
what I mean? It's the best because it's easy. No, it's actually fairly hard. But like again, you can get the load for other things.
For sure.
I feel like
I
that
kind of agree there. I'm not going to argue with you going back and forth there. It's just like it makes no sense to. It makes clear sense what you said. And in my setting, I'm not going to program that because of the safety to when I'm trying to get out of the squat pattern. I can probably do something else.
for sure.
Now let's move forward. Do the trap bar, is that considered still the deadlift, or is that like more of the, because we use it a lot, man. Is
Yeah.
now like the form of the trap bar squat? Like what do we say here?
That it's I'm going to be a purist answer on this one because if it's off the floor, all right, and we lift it up, that by definition is a deadlift, right? Now, what I would say is the thing that the trap bar allows is the flexibility to move that person around the line of pull. So if you push those knees forward, translate that tibia, get into more ankle dorsiflexion, and sit back more, it's going to look more like a squat. But the thing is, like, by definition, we're pulling off the floor, so I still have to call it a deadlift. It's just a squattier deadlift. If I now push those knees back, vertical shin angle, hips are higher, and I'm in that kind of more RDL deadlift type position, my trunk's more over the bar, and I pull from there, it's more conventional deadlift, more toggling the glute and hamstring, right?
Sure.
So the other side of it is what happens a lot of times when we do that hex bar, trap bar movement is people drop the bar at the top. So actually, we're not even getting the true squat, the deceleration by riding the bar down
Right.
with it. So again, I think you can get some squat load in there. There's quads in the deadlift, conventional, whatever barbell we use. We can make it a little bit more quaddy, a little bit more less quaddy with positioning in the
Maneuver,
trap
right?
bar.
Like so if we flip the bar around and go low bar, right? Because typically a trap bar handle has that typical handle that's kind of right at the knee, if right?
Yeah,
Or like right at the top of the calf, you would say that's where the handles typically lays. Or if we flip it over, the low handles, like now you're in a deep position,
yeah,
right?
you've got to, which some guys can't even get there. Like Biggs,
Exactly.
for example,
Yeah.
like you can't even. They're gonna have to hip hinge that because there's no way they can reach unless they've got super crazy wingspan.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it can be a squat. If I had to like, I'd say it's good, but I don't think it's the best method of what we've already talked about
Hmm.
for the squat pattern and specifically quad load. But I think it's a really useful method for basketball. What about you?
I do. I do. I think it should be in most programs, right? Because you could
I
load the shit out of that.
I mean, I would be surprised if a basketball program doesn't have trap bar deadlift variation
Right.
in it.
Right. And again,
Like
that's
very
in a
surprised.
previous episode we spoke about, I believe, right? We did.
Yep.
We talked
Yep. We
about
talked about
Olympic
that.
variation and things of that nature. That's super beneficial and useful. So let's label off these like maybe one through whatever we talked about just now.
Before we do that, I have one more. I have one more exercise for you.
Which one? The goblet squat. Which one?
No, no, no. The goblet squat. Yeah, the goblet squat is actually the goat of all exercises.
Yeah.
That's what we want. I mean, goblet squat actually does. We'll run with this one. Goblet squat does have a bit of hate because of the loading profile, right? But quite honestly, like where I like goblet squat is for women's basketball or just warm up, patterning, things like that. It's easy. It's easier to pattern. It's that same thing. So if you wanted to use goblet squat, I think that's fine. It's not a primary stimulus for me, so that's why I've not like thought about it.
Yeah.
Like, do you use goblet squats at all?
I do. I actually really like the goblet squat. I think it's a regression to the now front rack safety bar front squat. That's where I would put my continuum on, is that now I have something else I can prescribe. But I think that goblet squat's useful because most guys are pretty comfortable in that position. But like once you start getting into that 100-pound dumbbells, the big bulky, then it
Right.
tends to get a bit difficult. But I do like it for a rear foot elevated split squat. I think there's some uses for it.
Yeah, for sure.
And again, it's an exercise that guys pretty much have done all along. You know, they have a good amount of experience, especially prior to you seeing that athlete. At some point, they probably used a goblet squat form or fashion. Yeah,
Great pattern exercise.
yeah. It's
Not
not a
great
goat.
loading.
Yeah, it's not the best goat. It's
Yeah,
not the goat.
it's
Think
not
it.
the goat.
I don't think it's overrated because there's a regression portion of it that could be progressed.
Yeah,
So I put it in
I
that
like.
category. Okay, sometimes, or you know,
Yeah, it's yeah. You can use it. It's an option. You're not gonna get the biggest quad adaptations from goblet squats. Would be my takeaway for the listeners there. But I want to jump on actually another thing that you just said with like the rear foot elevated split squat, right? So we've talked about different machines, variations, and things like that. What would be your number one rear foot elevated split squat setup?
squat, dude.
X squat. Oh, okay.
Yeah, because you still have that stability where you're sliding up that, I guess, that track on that hack
Mhm.
squat. You like there's still room for you have the, I don't know how to explain it really. Like you're typically in this position here, right? The handles are on your side, the pads are on your shoulders, and you're going in that slightly vertical or horizontal position is almost equivalent to like a landmine form for the upper body, right? So I would just say, like, for full range of motion purposes, loading throughout the whole movement, hack squat's really awesome. And like mentally, like you're there, like you can hop on that thing and be like, all right, fuck, I got to load this up. But it's not as bad as like, man, if I'm doing like a safety bar split squat or rear foot elevated, like that's treacherous, man. Like now you're like, damn, I'm dreading doing this, you know?
Right. The setup is harder than the actual execution sometimes with those type of
It
exercises
is.
because like the balance of getting your foot
It
back,
is.
getting like on the bar.
Yeah. So just thinking in an ideal setting, an extra large hack squat machine, at least having one of those in a weight room for basketball, man, you could do a lot of stuff with it.
Yeah, that's actually got me thinking because my answer was going to be I like the Smith machine
Hmm.
version of it because again you can get set up and then unrack
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then do the movement, which is akin to being in a machine like a hack squat, right? And then I'm also kind of thinking the Kaiser squat machines and then having the pads for rear foot elevated split squat like behind the Kaiser machine. That's potentially the other way that I would program a hack squat. So like having that pneumatic pressure rather than a plate loaded potential machine, you know?
Hmm.
So yeah, that's an interesting one. That's actually got me thinking a little bit. But where I did want to go, which I think I said I had a top three squats, and now I'm gonna backtrack and say I'm probably gonna have a top four, and this might possibly be my most favorite like free weight exercise, barbell exercise for a bilateral squat pattern, but also the unilateral squat patterns as well, is the Hatfield squat. So the squat where you've got the safety bar on your back, but you can front Hatfield safety bar squat. I've done that one time and it was pretty good. Like having your handles or having something to hold on to and then creating stability through the trunk because of that point of contact that you can hold. That for me is up there with they're probably tied, that front rack one and then the Hatfield squat for me.
Yeah.
Like
Because there,
because we can load it up.
yeah. No, because you can load it up. You have that stability in the front, right? Like you have the handle, so you have the upper body contraction. like where you can kind of pull yourself up with. But then again, man, like that hack squat, it's comfortable. You're using purely the lower body.
For sure.
But I do like that. The half field's a great squat, man. I mean, I think it's so
The only
useful
thing,
in so many settings. Go ahead.
no, the only thing that like again, the argument against the hack squat, right, is like I can't get 10 of them in a weight
Yeah.
room with 10 recs, whereas Hatfield I can set up 10 recs. Whatever amount of recs you got, you've always got the ability to do a Hatfield
Safety
squat
bar. Yeah.
as
Oh,
long as you
ideal
got safety
setting.
bars, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's where like accessibility most times if
Sure.
people like if I'm investing, I'm going getting safety bars. Like I said, I'm not a barbell hater by any means. I still use them. I still train with them personally, but I see the safety bar, these more non-conventional bars, like being greater usage for athlete performance than the standard barbell these days. And it's kind of
Yeah, I think
interesting that my mindset has switched that way.
sure. I agree. I do. So yeah, the best would be, I guess, the safety bar, split squat, Hatfield squat, because you could bilateral, unilateral, right?
And do that in season as well. I think the Hatfield is the hack to get infield in season squatting in
Yeah.
because of the assistance. Maybe have it go to pins if you want to set specific depths, if you want partials and things like that.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, again, I'm biased because I know in my program that trap bar variations in there that we talked about, that Hatfield variations in there, and then that front rack safety bar squat is in there. Again, you can also do that unilateral. I think any of the best exercises, the hack squat, the leg press, the pendulum squat, you can also do those single leg and load them pretty well as well. So that's like anything where like single leg can be loaded just
Maximally.
as
Yeah.
effectively as double leg, I think puts it in the top tier of the exercise. You can't do a back squat single leg very well with load unless you're like a Russian gymnast like at the circus, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You can do the pistol squat. So like yeah, for me any exercise that resistance profile and that loading profile looks like that you can load it equally as effectively. So not exactly the same loads, but like effectiveness, bilateral and unilateral. Those are my top go-to exercises always.
What if there is a form to put safety bar inside of the Smith machine?
I think there might be like I forget what company, but I think there is a company that has adjustable bar attachments, or they have like an
And could
attachment
you
that can go
imagine
on
that
to.
the attachment, like you can kind of like pull the bar down to rack,
Mhm.
right? And that's set, like that's massive.
So next, if you're listening, design it, make it, and then we'll buy it.
Probably have, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it probably exists. But yeah, all right. I think give me your if you were gonna say preferential order, maybe go top three, top five. What are you going with? Where are you building your weight room? What are the main essential things you put it in?
Yeah, let's just go with right now and what's most accessible for an athlete, right? So keep the machines out of the. If you have the square footage for that, obviously you're going to implement those, and we talked about those. But I really love the front rack safety bar for a bilateral pattern. I'm not a fan of the back squat. I feel I'm biased towards the exercises that I currently do. I was a big front squat. I love the front squat, but now that this you have the pad on the front, dude, it just makes it so much easier.
It's the goat.
It's I guess age because we're speaking out, as you get past those and evolve, like your training and like I like to wake up and feel good. Like that normal soreness is great, but like not that like I'm in pain, my low back, my knees are crushing. Like I don't get any of that. Knock on wood. And I guess the Hatfield, yeah, anything with the safety bar, I'm all in really. So I
Yeah,
think that's it's probably so it's cost efficient. Most likely buy for every rack that you have, you could probably get a safety bar for it, some pins, and bang, you can get strong as shit, you know?
for sure. I'm gonna ask one last question actually before we wrap up because I saw this the other day, and it's exercise scientist, like expert in like muscle building and things like that, and I'm kind of interested to get your thoughts. The pistol squat. This person is saying that the pistol squat is one of their most effective exercises to get quad load and make muscle gains and muscle growth in the quads. Do you think the pistol squat is a viable exercise to use in basketball? Bit of a loaded question, but I'm intrigued because this person rates it very highly for muscle building, but I have some thoughts.
How do you get muscle building if you don't have external load?
I mean, they're saying that because the loading profile of a pistol squat is so hard, body weight wise, a single leg, that there is a bit of a threshold for you to gain muscle. It's just not been investigated very well. And then the argument is Okay, you could do a pistol squat in the Smith machine, or you could do a single leg hack squat, things like that, right? So like, but let's he demonstrated it as like the traditional pistol squat, leg out in the front, get down as low as you can. I just again take load out of it. Let's say we're doing BFR for it or whatever, right? So like we get a bit of a stimulus there, right? You whistle.
No,
It's
I
like
don't doubt that it's a difficult exercise, and I can see where unilaterally it's like super beneficial because like you have to be able to demonstrate the range of motion to get all the way down to that squat, right? Like you got to be able to express strength in those the lowest and deepest the lengthened positions possible, right? Because at some
uh,
point, like when you do a rep, like you're almost like you're looking for momentum somewhere, and it's really hard to find that. You know, when guys like people back squat and you get that little bounce that kind of like that pop up. It's kind of hard to really do that with the pistol squat. I don't doubt that it's a fucking hard ass
it's
squat
a
to
hard
do.
exercise.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do, right? Like if you think about like if you went and asked every one of your athletes right now to demonstrate a pistol squat, if you had to guess how many do you think percentage wise could do like a full up and down rep,
Hmm.
get as low as possible, like below, like close the knee gap kind of thing?
Hmm.
How many do you think you would do it? And it's not like a hey, this means all your guys are shitty movers. I honestly
I don't.
don't.
I maybe one.
Right, I don't think many people can actually even do it.
You know, like I don't know. That's pretty hard. Like, how was it done? Was it on like a box? Like you know, in the box, and you're like kind of like that free leg is like
I mean, I can send I can link the
yeah.
YouTube clip and I can send it over to you as well.
What's the
It was just
yeah?
he just standing up, boom, went down, pistol squat, and then came back up, right?
Beast.
So,
That's tough.
right. I think you said we were going to say what's the regression. I would say probably adding stability, like holding on
Height.
to something like yeah, like a box, go to a box, start on a
Go to a
box, things like
bench.
that.
Like fall back to a bench.
But my thing is like anybody that I've seen do a pistol squat really well is really strong in all of the other lifts. So is it all of the other lifts of prerequisites to pistol squat, if you know what I mean? And at that point, kind of to your earlier point, if load is the limiting factor of that exercise, and I can load all of those other exercises continuously until wherever my one repetition max is, like probably the muscle growth side of things. Like I know I kind of tangented this a little bit, but like it's just interesting to me because in other worlds, people think that that is the most effective exercise for them in terms of muscle growth, but we wouldn't even like talk about it as a basketball movement in a program, right?
No, because I just think the limb lengths are so much greater. Like that's a small man's. I feel like it's a small person's exercise. No, like for a
Mhm.
bigger person to do that, like I just it's hard to see
You're really
Joel
impressive.
Embiid. Like maybe he needs that squat, dude. I don't know, but
Maybe if he could pistol squat, he wouldn't be as hurt as much. Who knows?
but it's I don't doubt like it's a super skillful exercise too,
Yeah.
right? But that's on the verge of like almost like Olympic skill ish, like where it's there's some technique, there's a lot of counter. You know, you're trying to figure that out as you go along.
It's acrobatics, right?
Yeah.
So if you were in the Olympic sports world, like gymnasts, probably going to be really good at pistol squats.
Mhm.
But normally, the males actually are kind of muscular, but the females are normally pretty light and
Are
like
able to do
slender,
that.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that the ones that are typically on the whatever it's called, the pommel horse or whatever, and they'll do that split
Maybe.
squat
I mean,
or
that's
pistol
maybe
squat
it's a
pattern.
really good question. It's a super difficult exercise. So I'm sure it has benefits, but I don't know about like in that term of like muscle growth, maybe muscle strength. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, they use it as one of their top
maybe.
hypertrophy methods. I mean, it's kind of like the reverse Nordic, right? Like you can probably load that up a little bit more. We haven't talked about that today because it's not truly a squat pattern. But again, like it's going to get you some quad stretch. It's going to get you some quad load. I just feel like it's kind of hard to do it. Smith machine again would be my answer. Like if I was going to try and do it, I'm probably doing it in the Smith, which gives you a bit of external load, but added stability kind of thing.
Mhm.
But then I'm not sure. Again, I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze with that specific exercise. Maybe if we did get people really strong and really good at pistol squats, that would transfer to better balance on the court or something like that. So maybe it's an area in
Potentially.
the future
Yeah, yeah,
to
no. I see the where it could be beneficial, but I don't know. Maybe.
yeah. So yeah, we'll end it there because we're definitely really good on time on this one. We've had a really good discussion. So for the listeners out there, if you've made it this far, maybe drop in the comments what your number one goated squat exercise is. I'm sure some people disagree with what we said as well. So even if you are a hater, you can definitely comment and let your voice be heard. And we've got some guests coming up, right, Justin? So hopefully we'll have some other different topics and content to kind of go through.
Definitely. We have a lot of great guests coming up in the future, so stay tuned. I know we've been saying that, but it's coming. And feel free to give us a follow, connect with us if you want to potentially jump on here and voice your own opinion. We're just here, just chatting away, and we're just recording it for everybody else, right? Like, so if we help somebody, that's great. If not, we apologize, but it just is what it is, right?
We wasted your time. Thank you for listening. But again, make sure you're following us at Reps and Real Talk _ on Instagram. Make sure CT Sports Science if you want to reach out to me personally.
At JRey Strength, so JREY.strength. You can find me on Instagram. Yeah, the dot's nice.
So again, make sure you're following us. Make sure you're reposting this stuff. Make sure you're giving us likes, thumbs up, all of those things on the specific platforms. And we will see you in the next episode.
Very good. See you soon.